Board's here, Montgomery County Tea Party. It is January 16th, 2020. We're here with Colonel Alan West. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you. And Colonel West is running for chair of the Republican Party of Texas. With me is Dale Fessenden, Larry Rogers, Bob Bagley, James Spires, and David Smith. And Colonel West, as we discussed, if you like, take up to 5 minutes on an opening, and then we'll go around the table with Q&A after that.
Very simple. Born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. Went to the University of Tennessee, spent 22 years in the United States Army, retired out of Fort Hood, Texas in 2004. My wife, her dad was also career military, 24 years, 2 tours in Vietnam, infantryman, buried at Arlington National Cemetery, and I told her wherever she wanted to go. Because she had been dragged all over the God's green earth. And so we settled down in South Florida. Taught high school for a year down in South Florida. That was such an enjoyable experience that I volunteered to go back to Afghanistan to train the Afghan National Army. I did that for 2.5 years. It was much safer. I was armed. I mean, if you know about teaching high school, I mean, it's not exactly a safe space. So came back, and some folks came to me because they had just recently lost a seat there in South Florida. As a matter of fact, the gentleman, Clay Shaw, was going to be the incoming chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. So I ran for Congress in 2008, came up short. That was the Obama wave. They wanted me to run again in 2010. I did, was successful. Our re-election in 2012 was interesting. I was redistricted out by the Republicans, and I was the #1 target for the Democrats in 2012. We lost by 0.49%. A year later, got the opportunity to come back to Texas, and been here for 5 years now. We live up in Garland. I've been married for 30 years, 2 daughters, 26 and 22. Oldest, Aubrey, is a physician assistant at Methodist Hospital in South Dallas. And the youngest, Austin, works in a software consulting firm up there in Addison, Texas. And my wife is a financial advisor. She's the brains of this duo. She has an MBA and a PhD. I met her when I was a young, stupid captain at Fort Riley. She was a business professor at Kansas State. So that's it. That's my background, and so why would I seek to run for this office when so many folks said you should run for Congress or you should go and run for Senate? The fight for America is in Texas. If Texas is lost, it doesn't matter what happens up there on Capitol Hill. Texas is going to be receiving 3 new congressional districts. And if the left is going to pour in millions, they're emphasizing everything that they want to do. First and foremost, to flip the Texas State House, which, as you know, in November 2018, we lost 12 seats in the Texas State House. They only need 8 to be able to have the Texas State House. And then when you look at where we are with our Senate, we have a very close margin there for being able to bring legislation to the floor as a Republican majority. We've got to hold on to our State House and State Senate. That's key. We lost 56 judgeships. You know what happened just right down the road in Houston and Harris County with the judges there. Same thing happened in Dallas County. That's very important when you go into redistricting. Who controls the determination of those lines being drawn? So this is a strategic thing that the left is doing. If you don't think that they are capable of it, look at what they're going through right now in Virginia. Michael Bloomberg and his millions of dollars caused Virginia to flip. Michael Bloomberg is already running ads in the state of Texas. And Michael Bloomberg has sat back because he is waiting for the Texas primary, California primary. He's not participating in any of the early ones because he believes Super Tuesday is going to be the ticket. So we have to have very strong leadership here in the state of Texas. We can't win on defense. We've got to go on offense. We have to take our message into the major urban population centers because that's what the left is doing. They're focusing on the major urban population centers, and then they flip an entire state. That's what has happened in Nevada, that is what happened in Arizona, in Colorado, New Mexico, that's what happened in Virginia, where Prince William County and Fairfax County have now dictated the politics of the rest of that state. And it's happening in my home state, where I was born in Georgia. Stacey Abrams never left the Atlanta metropolitan area to campaign for governor, and almost won. The exact same blueprint is happening here in Texas.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you again for your service. Appreciate it. In the overview, in the introduction, your bio you had mentioned something about being a former executive director of the National Center for Policy Analysis in Dallas, Texas. This is currently out of business, right? Okay, what happened there?
Sure. I was brought into the National Center for Policy Analysis as the president and CEO because the previous president and CEO, the founder, John Goodman, had been expelled by the board. And that was due to sexual misconduct with the director of development and also funneling funds from the organization to her to try to pay her off. So I came in behind a bad situation. And we were doing pretty good. We got all the bills paid off and everything. We were starting to turn things around. Unfortunately, we hired a veteran, a young man. He was an officer, artillery officer, but we did not do an extensive enough background search, and he ended up embezzling funds from the organization. And so that was something that we really worked hard to try to overcome. The board made a decision that they wanted to end it. I thought that we could continue to try to fight and maintain the organization, but they had the superiority vote, and so the National Center for Policy Analysis does not exist anymore.
Thank you.
Okay, I was reading on your website, and one of the articles there said, years of mismanagement by the state GOP, recent scandals, and an electorate that's growing increasingly blue. So can you be a little bit more specific on what you consider the mismanagement and the scandals and how they relate to the current chair?
Well, I think that when you look at where we are in the Republican Party of Texas, first of all, you go back and the November 2018 losses that we suffered has really put us, with a prime target. And I think it's been the mismanagement of how we focus on our local elections, most importantly, city council elections, school board elections, county commission elections, but the judgeships. So I think that has not been a good focus from the Republican Party of Texas. And another thing is I don't think we've done a really good job, and this is something that all Republicans are guilty of. We are horrible messengers. If there's anything the Republican Party needs to do is go back and take Marketing Communications 101. And last night I was speaking down in the 5th Ward in Houston. And when I told people, Republicans that were at an event at the First Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church, that the Republican Party of Texas was founded on July the 4th of 1867 by 150 blacks. And one of the first chairmen of the Republican Party of Texas was a black businessman by the name of Norris Wright Cooney, for whom Cooney Homes is named after. Republicans didn't know that. That tells me there's a problem with even understanding the history behind this party and putting the other side on defense. And when I look at what has happened with the fact that we went to a legislative session, 0 for 5 on the legislative parties, that's not how we're going to gain the trust and the confidence of the people that are going to be asked to, in the hot Texas sun, get out there and walk neighborhoods, knocking on doors, making phone calls and everything. When they turn around and see everything that we are hoping for, you guys are just pushing off to the side. Now, when I talk about a scandal, I don't think Dennis Bonham should still be the Speaker of the Texas State House. If Dennis Bonham was an officer in the United States Army, he would have been relieved. Because once you sacrifice your honor, your integrity, and your character, you are of no use. And I think we all can recognize that was unethical what you did. And the fact that we have had so many people in the leadership of this state that's kind of brushed this aside, Dennis Bonham will become the face of corruption for the Republican Party of Texas going into 2020. Because that's how the other side thinks.
Is there anything that Governor Abbott or Lieutenant Governor Patrick could have done on a legal perspective?
I think what they should have done on a professional perspective and putting Texas above, a person's interests is to call for that special session and getting someone else to come in and be the Speaker. And then, after the election of 2020, let's pray, we still hold those majorities and then we can elect a new Speaker. I don't understand why it is in the Republican Party majority in our state legislature, in our state house, we have Democrats that are, chairman of committees. I don't think if you go to California, you're going to see a single Republican being the chairman of any committee in their state assembly.
Okay. Thank you, Larry.
It's been said that our platform, we have too many planks.
332 last I counted.
Do you like all the planks, or would you consider changing some, or what's your opinion of the planks?
Well, you know, we have a saying in the military, if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. So you have 332 things that I guarantee you most people in the SREC, if you were to come up and say, what's plank number 239, they would not be able to tell you. I think it's very important that we neck it down to 10 major priorities that we have. Now, you can have sub-priorities out of those 10, but we need to have 10 categorical priorities that we're looking at, because that's how we have to be able to focus. We have to be able to focus a mission, a message. In reviewing the platform, it was very interesting. I mean, I saw things that were related to the National Defense Authorization Act. So what does that have to do with what we should be focusing on here in the state of Texas? So that's what I want to do. I want us to go through and scrub this thing and come up with the key priorities that we need to make sure that we are effective in our messaging and that we are training up the next generation of constitutional conservative candidates from, like I said, the local level all the way up. And everyone should be able to understand that. You know, that's one of the reasons I signed on to support the Lone Star Agenda. It's just 11 things. That's pretty simple. And I think that, you know, I don't know if the Navy guys here, but us Army guys are not real smart. So we have a principle called the KISS rule, keep it simple, stupid. And I think that that's what we need to have, a simple method that we can go out and convey to people.
How do you change the planks? I mean, as the head of the Republican Party, do you really have the authority to change any planks?
Well, that's why I said the SREC.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, because what am I? I'm the guy that's supposed to go out and sell these things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the guy that's supposed to be the face. I'm supposed to be the primary messenger for the Republican Party in the state of Texas. Now, 332 things, that's a little hard. That shows a lack of focus to me. And so what I would say to the SREC, sit down and really put some wholehearted effort into this to come up with, you know, God gave us, you know, 10 fingers, 10 toes, 6 senses. But let's neck this thing down so that we can be effective in communicating. Because let's be very honest, the electorate of America has been reduced to understand sound bites. Now that's not, some people say that's not fair, that's not good, but that's just the way it is. And so we have to be able to go out there and effectively communicate with people in the way that the culture is right now. And I think that we're not doing as good as we could possibly do.
Just as a takeoff on that, wouldn't you say that the principles would be basically your categories that you could scrub it down to, and the platform, the 332 items would be the sub categories?
Yeah, but again, I don't think we need to add up to 332.
Mhm.
I think it has to be relevant, and it cannot be completely overreactionary so that something pops up and we throw a plank out there. I think we have to make sure that this is something that is, you know, a long-range vision, but we can quickly implement it in the short term. And it's a living document, there's no doubt about it. But I do think that 332 is really extensive. It doesn't prioritize, and it shows, to me, a lack of focus.
Okay.
I'm going to carry on with that. That wasn't where I was going to go, but the platform is put together not by the SREC, not by the chairman. It's put together by the people that attend the convention and submit their requests and desires on how they want the party to be led and their beliefs for the party. So I'm not sure how. Explain to me how in your position that you can change that. And
Well, I'm not seeking to change it, but then when I talk about the SREC are the folks that are voted upon by the people that are out there on the ground to come out and be a voice. So I think that another thing we need to do is make sure that the SRC, they have a good line of communications to the people in those Senate districts that they're supposed to be representing. You know, it's the theory of top-down planning, bottom-up refinement. And I think that's what we have to get back to.
And I agree to a certain extent with some of that. However, if we operated on minimals, we would operate on the 10 Commandments and we would operate on the Constitution. But we don't do that anymore.
And it's a sad thing that we don't operate on the Constitution.
It is, but if you, taking that same logic with the platform and removing all law that's ever been produced, all the books.
I never
that are-
said I was
No,
gonna remove
no, I
it.
didn't say that. I didn't say you were. It's an analogy. Same thing. We have our Constitution, but we have volumes of laws that have been written to make changes. Well, that's the way many of us see the platform, is that we know what should be done. We have what do we have this last time? 5 priorities that we were at. We wanted
Sure.
10 and we got knocked down to 5.
Sure.
That's
Legislative.
legislative
Those are
priorities.
legislative priorities, yeah.
And that's the priorities.
Yeah.
All the rest of it is just where we see where we need to be.
I would tell you once again that we need to go through and look at all those 332 and make it a conscientious decision. Are they still relevant? And I think that that's all that I'm saying.
And I'm speaking on my own, but we pretty much do that every time we have a state
Good.
convention.
Then that's fine.
And go through them and decide whether we're gonna keep them or not, so.
And that's fine.
I-
I'm just saying that my thought process is that let's make sure that it is focused and it's prioritized, and not just get set that we have to have this large number that is out there. It's gotta be relevant.
Okay, dues bills through Congress or even through the state legislature. They come out 2,000 pages.
I've been in Congress, and I will tell you that I hated that.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand and I agree. The thing is, when you shrink down the volume, what you do is you introduce a lot of ambiguity. And so you've got to find the right balance there.
Clear, concise language. You know, one of the things in the battlefield, when the action starts, the commander doesn't give a soliloquy. He has to be able to give concise and direct orders that the subordinate units can understand and they can execute.
Now, one thing I guess we might, not with you personally, but as a party, we have concern with is top-down run organization or bottom-up. We've had a long history, by long, I'm talking about just the past few decades really, of top-down, where even at the state level, the committee members were really appointed by the chair and a few other the leadership, and trotted out to us without really much discussion or anything. And we had the choice of basically doing the entire job on the delegation floor. That's been done occasionally, but it's very impractical. You're talking about a 3-day long session when we have to do that. More locally, we've had to deal with the same issue, where for 50 years, 55 years, top down. And when I started the Republican Party 10 years ago, came in through the Tea Party, reacting to my son almost being killed by Obama's rules of engagement, and then of course Obamacare and all that rot. It was basically a social party. The only thing being done in substance was the chairman, and not much was being done there because he started when the population here was under 40,000. We're now fast approaching 1 million. And the state, we are one big doggone state.
I know that,
So-
254 counties.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. We're going around a little bit where. So there are a lot of voices in this one room. I doubt we agree on the core principles. You go past that, not everyone here is going to agree on any one of those things. There'll be someone that disagrees. When I have my caucus, all these platform suggestions come in, EMP things, which are valid concerns.
Yes.
And that's why there's so many. First of all, it's not just state issues. You're talking about local issues,
Sure.
state and national. And when you start throwing in Congress, like Dale was talking about, how many bills they passed, that's why there are so many. And we come back with the 5 legislative priorities, which are really state legislative. We haven't really done it national, which I think we probably should do. Recognizing there needs to be a focus. And this last session didn't get even one of those 5 legislative priorities. Big disappointment. Some success was made. So my question is this. As chair, the SREC doesn't do the platform either. That's the state delegation.
Yep.
And the SREC is certainly there to deal with issues like bonding. They can pass resolutions. We do the same thing with our executive committee. And yes, once there's a resolution, we would expect the chair, local and state, to aggressively, prosecute those resolutions with whatever regards. So my question is, being a chair, is it the same thing as being the executive of a company, as opposed to taking the direction from the delegation and the SREC and using that delegation as your job? That's the difference between bottom up or top down. How do you think it needs to be done?
Well,
How do you plan to do it?
I think that it's important that me as a chairman kind of gives a guidance or gives a vision, because it is a leadership position.
Are you talking about at the state convention, or is this like?
Well, I think that I should always be out there trying to give it a vision. And I think, because again, you're asking me to be that face. You're asking me to be that
question.
messenger.
Vision or brand or both?
Well, vision is not the same as brand, because
Right.
a vision is an aspirational statement. It's kind of like a budget is an aspirational.
And it's the
document.
direction.
And it's the direction to go into.
Right.
The brand has to be that when people see our
Like
principles
bond.
well,
Sorry,
Yes.
I'll let you.
Yeah. But the brand is that when
Clock will be
people
next time.
when people see our principles and values,
Yes,
I'm supposed to be representing those principles and values. That's
Yes.
the brand.
yes.
Now, coming back to one of the things you just said, EMP, because I work with State Senator Bob Hall, that's important for Texas. It may seem to
Yes.
some people like a federal issue, but why? Because Texas has its own grid.
Yeah, it does, you're right.
So that's why, that's one of the things I said, yeah, absolutely.
And we have hurricanes too. like you said.
Yeah, and so we need to be able to harden that grid for security purposes and other purposes. We're not tied to either one. But again, I think that what you're looking at is, in the position of a chairman,
Mhm.
I'm a servant. Number one, I'm there to carry this banner. I'm there to be the voice. I'm there to be the one that goes to Austin when they're in session, and even before we go into session, sit down with the governor, the lieutenant governor, the speaker, and say, okay, guys, let's put our heads together. This is the direction that the delegation, the Republicans of Texas have said they want to go into. Are we going to be able to get there? Where are we not going to find success? Then how do we make sure that we can have better success? That's what you have to go in and do.
How long is your whip?
How long is my whip? I don't have a whip.
Because those guys are like herding cats.
But I get it. But again, you come back to brand.
Yeah.
You need to have the brand of a person that's going to go in there and not be told sit in the corner. You don't know what you're
I
talking
totally
about.
agree, yeah.
Okay, so that's part of that brand. And the vision is to, let people know that I will be a champion. I will be the person that goes into the ring and fights for it.
By the way, I heard you on Fox and Friends talking about the Solomon thing, and
Soleimani?
I'm sorry, Soleimani.
Okay, I was gonna say
Soleimani,
Solomon.
Solomon, you're right. Soleimani,
Yeah.
and our taking him out, and I thought your response was very thorough and very, very well said.
But that's what I want to bring to the table.
Mhm.
So that when I'm sitting there with the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the speaker, I've done a thorough analysis. And I'm presenting them the legislative priorities and the direction that from the bottom up, they said we want to go in. And I don't leave them the wiggle room to say, you guys really don't know what you're talking about. You don't really know what you're doing. No, sir, let me tell you.
That is what they'll do.
Yeah, well, I'm not that kind of guy. I'm very respectful, but I don't take people who try to patronize me very lightly. And if I'm in the position to be the chairman of the Republican Party in Texas, I'm the voice for all of these folks that are out there saying, this is the direction that we want to head in.
Thank you.
So President Trump
Maybe
has,
that's why the Republicans redistricted me out in Florida.
that is surprising. So President Trump, to me, has created an opening with his emphasis on finding good jobs for low and middle income. And we need to get those votes in the Texas urban areas.
So you just gave me a
That's to
softball
me,
question.
to me, that's the critical.
No, it
We can
is.
talk about EMP, we can talk about other stuff, we won't be around.
Sir, and that's, again,
Yeah.
when you come back to what he talked about brand. In 1961, I was born in the inner city of Atlanta, Georgia, in a blacks-only hospital.
I don't know how that works.
Okay, the old Fourth Ward is the same neighborhood that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was born and raised in. I have a credibility to be able to go into any inner city and be able to talk about, you know, it was 77% the two-parent household when I was born. It's 24% now. This Planned Parenthood headquarters that's on the south side of I-45, that's the largest in the United States of America, was founded by white supremacists and racists. Since Roe v. Wade in 1973, 20 million black babies have been murdered in the womb.
It's almost like genocide.
It is a genocide, but yet you have someone like a Sheila Jackson Lee, who I served with, can on June 10th go up on Capitol Hill and start talking about reparations. See, I would have immediately called her out. I could have had a press conference, a press release, and whatever, and could have, you know, just shamed her. And that's what you have to be able to do in those inner city communities. We're not talking about education freedom in the inner cities. My parents did not send me to the two failed public schools in my neighborhood, C.W. Hill and John Pope. They sent me to Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic School, a black Catholic school right across the street from Ebenezer Baptist Church. So it's not me coming in and saying, you know, this is what y'all need to do, and I've never had that experience. I can go into the black community. I can go into the Hispanic community and say, look what these people did to us. You're next. Because they got to have people that are dependent upon them. And where did it start? It started with a Texas president. Now, how powerful that is to be able to go and say these things. How powerful it is to go down to First Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church and say, this Republican Party of Texas was founded right here by blacks in Houston. That's what you gotta do. We have not, and let me tell you something, what President Trump did, and he took heat from it, but I was all in. First Republican ever, presidential candidate, to say to the black community what he said in 2016 in Charlotte, North Carolina, what do you have to lose? And now his approval rating in the black community, anywhere between 27 and 34%.
I mean, to me, Trump represents the second mass nation that we should, you know, the Democrats have destroyed the industry.
It's economic enslavement.
Yeah.
And when you say those two words, folks, you put them on their heels. But we cannot be reticent and recalcitrant. Let me tell you what upsets me about Republicans. I was speaking to Lake Holland's Republican Women's Club up there in Dallas about 4 years ago. And they said, Colonel West, we can't go into the black community and say the things that you say. You know what I told them? Then why is it that white, liberal, progressive socialists go into the black community?
Yeah, they do. That's right.
So I got to empower you all. No one should be calling you a racist, especially when you know the history of the Republican Party. But if we don't know our own history, then they call us a racist. We're back on our heels. So yes, we're going to take this message just like I did last night into the Fifth Ward, or into South Dallas, or anywhere, because that's where we got to make a difference. And we don't have to win everybody. Y'all understand. But if you get north of 10% in the black community, you just destroy the other side. And that's their fear right now.
And under the general category, under what differentiates you from your opponents, you indicated the ability to communicate our conservative principles and values and inspire others to as well. What would you do different than what the current chair is doing now to be more effective at communicating those conservative principles to the base?
Well, it's not just to the base, but it's all across the state. So we're already running commercial advertisements because I think it's important to start getting that message out there to get people to start thinking. But you got to be everywhere. As a commander, I did not sit back in the headquarters. You got to be out there, and that is how you inspire people. When there was a sucky day, and you know somebody had to be out there, you know, pulling guardship, you know, in Taji, which was the intersection of the Fallujah, Ramadi Road and Highway 1, I went out there and stood guard duty with them because that lets them know that I'm here with you. I'm not gonna tell you to go out here on patrol. I'm not gonna tell you to go out there and stand guard duty in the middle of the day all night, and then I'm gonna be in my cot, knocked out. That's inspirational leadership. That gets out there, I'm gonna try to get to all 254 counties, but at least I will get to all of the 31 Senate districts. And you've got to let people touch you, feel you, understand you, and know that you're in the fight with them.
Just below that, the question is, what best describes your political ideology? Most circle only one, you circled conservative, and you also said we're in an ideological civil war between conservatism and postmodern liberalism, Marxism, statism,
Yeah.
socialism, progressivism, and communism. So this culture war starts and ends in the public education arena. What steps can you take as figurehead of the party to turn around the downward spiral of public education in Texas?
I've got to go into those schools. Go to the high schools and support those young conservative organizations. I had to go and speak on these college campuses, University of Texas, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, wherever. The Commandant of the Corps of Cadets at Texas A&M is a dear friend of mine. I served with him on active duty, Brigadier General Ramirez. And sitting down with him, he told me that there are professors at Texas A&M University that want to eliminate the Corps of Cadets. So it's happening. The Autonomous Student Network threatened incoming freshmen to the University of Texas if they joined Turning Point USA or Young Conservatives of Texas. We did nothing. I'm on the board of Turning Point USA. And what Charlie Kirk is doing is phenomenal. We've got to encourage these young conservatives because they're up against their peers, they're up against the administration, they're up against their professors. I went up to speak in Garland High School, where I live in Garland, Texas. And it was supposed to be for the inauguration of a chapter of the Young America's Foundation, Constitutional Conservative Organization. The father of one of the kids told me there's been a little change. The principal of the high school decided that it was not a, how does she term it? A fair and balanced organization. It talks about the Constitution, national security, free market, but yet they had an LGBT club at Garland High School. Very simple. I got onto my Facebook page and told them the experience that I had, and it got to some previous graduates from Garland High School. The following week, they had a Young America's Foundation chapter at Garland High School. We have got to go on these campuses, and we got to fight for our kids.
Okay, you've given some glimpses already to my next question, but you gave an interview or you spoke with Javier Menajares, it was published in his Politica. And he says there, West's reason for running is simple. He wants to push back against what he calls progressive socialist left that's controlling the major population centers of Texas. So specifically, what would you have done differently in 2018 than you saw James Dickey do as the head of the Republican Party of Texas?
I would have started preparing that battlefield. I would have started going in there and understanding, because you could see it, what happened in Dallas. The billboards that were up for all of these judges, they chose black, they chose female primarily. And that's what I would have done. Focus on these judges, making sure that we, those state house seats. But you've got to start educating people before you even get to the election. So I think that, there's a shaping phase and there's a decisive phase. You got to start shaping the minds of people. You got to get people to understand why you want them, coming up in October, November to vote a certain way. You just can't. This is why I hate outreach. I hear people say outreach so much, and I despise that word. Because outreach means you show up in Black History Month or Hispanic Heritage Month or Asian Pacific Month or whatever the trendy month is. And you do whatever the fun thing is. You have fried chicken, collard greens, you go to the church, you clap or whatever, and they never see you again until a couple of months before the election. You've got to have engagement, a continuum. You've got to have policy inclusiveness, a continuum. You got to continue to get that message out there. And I think that's what I would do different. Is you got to start prepping that battlefield and getting that message out there so that people are ready then. I'm dying to go out and vote. against this thing that has economically enslaved me. But you gotta define that early.
Okay, and so you see that as the key to reaching, I know you talked about reaching people that have backgrounds similar to yours, but there's a lot of people in college age, millennials,
Sure.
that may not relate to that, but do you think that that type of engagement is going to relate to them as
Well,
well?
the type of engagement, you know, now you're talking about a different demographic, so I need to be able to go out and talk to them just the same as I talk to my two daughters who are 26 and 22. And we have to talk about their future. You know, one of the interesting things about young people is they want to be left alone. They want this independence. But yet they're falling for people that don't see them as an independent person. They see them as part of a collective. And so again, we have to be able to talk to this thing. My oldest daughter is a PA. When Bernie Sanders talks, she gets absolutely livid when he starts talking about Medicare for all, because she understands what that means. And so that's what we have to be able to do. Go in and talk to these people in their professions. If you are in a business profession, why would you want to go inside with these folks? You're moving here, or you are getting established in one of the, you know, best places for economic growth and opportunity and prosperity. 10% of Fortune 500 corporate headquarters are in Texas. Why would you want to vote for these guys? You just got to break it down to them about how it affects them and their lives each and every single day. And again, you know, I think it was in Paul, he said that, you know, to the Jew, I am the Jew, to the Greek, I mean, you've got to be able to take that message based upon your fundamental principles and values, but task organizing and tailor it to that demographic and be able to speak in a language that they can understand. And I think that that's what you have to do. That's why I say you go onto the campuses to talk to the high school kids. You go onto the university campuses. That's what paratroopers do. Paratroopers jump in behind enemy lines to cause disruption and confusion, and that's what we have to start doing. Stop letting the left believe that we're safe here. You can't touch us, you can't get to us. And so, with young people, with the black community, Hispanic community, I do not understand why any person that came here from Vietnam, the Asia Pacific community, why they'd be voting for the left. Especially the Asia Pacific, the Vietnamese community, which is very huge down there in Houston, came here with nothing. You know, often when I talk to suburban white women, I always tell them, where do you think Miss Kim's nail salon came from? It came from women who came here with nothing, but a dream and an aspiration. And those are our voters. And shame on us for not getting them to understand those principles and values. That's what we have here.
Thank you, sir. Larry?
You touched on Planned Parenthood a while ago, stating some of the figures. And our question was, do you support or oppose federal funding for Planned Parenthood and other agencies that perform abortions, both in the United States and abroad, even if they use money derived from other sources? And you said you oppose that. Elaborate a little bit more on that, please.
I think the argument that I would make is, why are we giving money to an organization that was started by white supremacists and racists? And that puts the other side on their heels when they're always talking about white supremacists and racists. You know, one of the problems, we make the mistake of believing that everyone knows what we know. A lot of people don't. A lot of people have no clue who Margaret Sanger is. One of the things that I had the folks up there in Dallas do was to put up a couple of billboards that talked about Margaret Sanger. It made the news. It enraged the left so much, it made the news. And they were so dumb that they put a picture up of several black women in the black community laughing and smiling about having an abortion. Completely backfired against them. That's what we have to do. So we have to make that very simple moral case that puts them on the defense, and then we have to tie it to say, why are taxpayer funded dollars going to an organization like this? Why don't we just give the money to, the Aryan Brotherhood? And then we have to tell them about the 20 million that have been murdered in the womb since 1973. You know what Javier Becerra, the Attorney General of California, just said? He said that we need to have more abortions because babies cost the state too much. Do you know how powerful that is for us to come out and say, is this what you want to align with? A person that believes that a baby costs the state too much, so we should be killing them? See, this has gone beyond this whole thing of women's rights and reproductive health or whatever. This is a serious moral issue. But yet, this is exactly what Margaret Sanger believed in. It's population control. So no, we should not be giving money to an organization that is based upon the philosophies of the white supremacists and racists, and we need to make that point.
Hopefully somebody asked Javier Becerra, aren't you glad your mom didn't feel that way?
Bob?
I'm not really sure where to go on that one. I'm going to go to talking to the young adults of today. Our young Republicans, our college Republicans, our high school Republicans. As much as we try to work with them and install the principles of the party and our culture, we're still failing because we're overrun by the left, by the teachers, by the professors. The parents don't have time to talk to them. Nobody teaches history anymore. We've seen a change, a move from the right, so to speak, from our conservative young Republicans over towards more moderate now. Not just the inclusion of LGBT, but and whatever else goes along with that, but drugs and so many things that we have a few that are working with us that are staunch conservatives, but where do you go? I mean, what do you do?
I don't know if my shoulders are that big. But
That's just it. I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, but I'm not sure how we can get there with our.
the most important start of any journey is the first step. And if we sit around and we just, wring our hands about it, never take that first step, we don't get anywhere. And that's why I always challenge parents. Tell folks you got to be the parent in your house. If I had come home from the University of Tennessee at any point in time in my 4 years there and told my parents that my professor was smarter than they were, I would not be sitting here in front of you guys today. So what changed? Why is it that we have, and you're right, we don't get the opportunity to spend as much time with our kids, but what time we do get to spend, it has to be quality time. And I think that's what we have to get back to. I can't solve all the problems in the home, but I can at least encourage and empower people to be able to do that, take that step, parents and grandparents. I can challenge what's happening in our schools so that we don't have a system of indoctrination, but we get back to a system of education. And again, I think that that's one of those key legislative priorities that we need to have here in the state of Texas, because that's where the next generation of young progressive socialists is being developed. I think that we also have to encourage our pastors. Too many of our pastors are dialing it in. One of the pastors that were there last night was one of those guys that had his sermon subpoenaed by Andy Park.
Oh, yeah.
But we don't talk about that anymore.
No.
When Robert Francis O'Rourke comes out and says that if you don't embrace same-sex marriage, churches should lose their tax-exempt status. Let me tell you, Chairman West would have gotten on the phone, and I'm dialing up all of the major Black and Hispanic pastors in this state. And then I'm calling up some other pastors to say, let me tell you what, it's game on. But we need to have those church-to-church relationships. The most segregated day in the United States of America is Sunday. The most conservative people in the United States of America on Sunday ain't white. But somehow Monday through Saturday, we lose contact with them. That's what we gotta reestablish. The conditions are set for us to be successful. It's just, we gotta take that first step. And we can't sit back and continue to say it's too hard, they're gonna vote for them anyhow. Let me tell you something. I'm seeing something I've never seen in my life. I am seeing black conservatism resurge.
Well,
I'm seeing the Hispanic community, faith, family, individual responsibility, education, small business entrepreneurship, service to the nation. The most Medal of Honor recipients in the United States of America are in the Hispanic community.
Vote your values.
Vote your values, that's all I'm saying. But coming back to the brand thing, when I stand up and they see me, that's what they have to see. Now, I will tell you, I never smoked, never drank in my life. This morning I got up and I put in 5.5 miles. When you stand up in front of a bunch of, kids who want to be fat, dumb, lazy, and on drugs and everything, say, what do you want to grow up to be? You want to grow up to be the drugged out adult? Do you want to grow up to be a productive person? And I'm an example of one of those. That's what you want to do, is to challenge them. And let me tell you something, if we go down the path of legalizing marijuana all across the United States of America, then who serves in the military?
That's right.
Because the military still will not accept you
Right.
if you have a drug history.
Yeah.
So that's a national security issue.
Houston Police Department lowered their standards and had to allow for people that use drugs or even had it in their bloodstream when they apply.
I'm telling you, that's not a good thing.
I agree.
We lowered our standards in the nation. We've allowed presidents to be pot smokers and do coke.
That's not a good
That's
thing.
true.
And where do you start with national security on that one?
Well, that is where we start to align culture
Mhm.
with leadership.
Right.
And I can tell you that what you see happening now in the United States military over those Obama years, the social re-engineering of our military, I still have a lot of friends there. My nephew is still in there. That has not been good for our military. Now we're starting to, fix that and correct some of that. So, but again, I have to be the embodiment of those things.
Well, we've worked hard with, we support young Republicans and send them off to Patriot Academy every year.
Scholarship.
And
Yeah.
it's still hard for us to find young people that are willing to come forward to even have the scholarship paid for.
A lot of times they're afraid of the peer pressure.
Yeah.
And look, in the inner city, I got beat up because I carried books home. Now, I could have stopped carrying the books home, and I would have been just like the other folks that are dead.
Right, got beat up by parents.
Like, I would have gotten beat up by parents. But I also learned that a history book is really good to whack somebody with too.
Yeah.
But it's those things, my mother taught me that a man will stand for something or else he'll fall for anything. And we've got to get our young people to understand how they need to stand up. And I always, when I talk to young people, I tell them that the letter that was written by William Barrett Travis, he was 26 when he wrote that letter.
Well, I had a choice between, I was thinking of asking you about flat tax. That's probably boring for most people. States'
Well, we can talk
rights.
about baseline budgeting.
Yeah, that's
zero-based
true,
budget.
that's true, or even states' rights, and that really depends. So I'm gonna pick one that's more interesting. We were talking about millennials and that sort of thing. As a Republican Party, our brand, should we be using a litmus test for sexual preference, for example, so that the members of the LGBTQ and the rest community feel totally unwelcome and therefore go immediately, of course, to the Democrat Party? What about a religious test? Should Muslims feel totally unwelcome to the Republican Party? Now, I have gay friends that agree with me on everything in terms of our conservative principles. Till you get down to, that's not me, till you get down to marriage, of course, and we're just going to disagree on that.
Yeah, we're going to disagree.
But for them, that's not a point to part ways.
It is not, it
you
is
know?
not. And
And
you know
then-
something, and you know what, Being a member of Congress down in South Florida, okay, I have one of the largest gay communities in the United States of America, Wilton Manors. And I got hit with that question. You know what I told them? I support civil unions. See, I
Sure.
told them what I'm for, not what I'm
Yeah.
against. And they understood that. I said, look, I believe in a traditional family. And there are lots of conservatives that are lesbian and gay. As a matter of fact, the hashtag walk away movement
Yeah,
was started by a young gay man.
that's right.
Brendan
I
Strong.
heard him talk on
Absolutely.
Mark Levin.
Absolutely.
And then on the Muslim community, we've had Muslims in our Tea Party.
Sure.
And I worked with a bunch of course, at ExxonMobil. And by and large, they weren't any different than Catholics that, you know, take the Pope with a grain of salt. They have a grain on their shoulders. They're not there to create jihad. And it's like 10% of them would, and that's a lot of Muslims
Yes.
worldwide, certainly. But by and large, they want to be good citizens.
And that's the key.
Do we want a religious test? as a
No, we don't need a
Republican
religious test, but we need to make sure that people understand that the supreme law of this land is the United States Constitution.
Party? Exactly. yes.
Okay, and it is not
No,
going to
see,
be.
Catholics had that. I remember when JFK was running for office. They questioned him. Well, are you going to listen to the Pope or the Constitution? It's the same issue, right?
It's the Constitution.
Yeah.
And we have to be very concerned with, you know, some of the people that do try to infiltrate. But I think that when you make it very clear that this is.
Like rhinos.
Yeah.
Infiltrating.
Yeah, but when you make it very clear that we stand up for this rule of law,
Yes.
and, you know, two of my interpreters from Afghanistan are now American citizens.
There you go.
Now, let me tell you what the litmus test, I don't want to call it that, but this is what I did for them. I told them, I want you to read the Declaration of Independence. I want you to read the United States Constitution.
Mhm.
I want you to come back and tell me what that means to you. What do you understand that makes America distinct and different from Afghanistan? I said, when you can explain that to me, then I will help and assist you with the paperwork for you to come be an American citizen.
How'd they do?
They did really well. Because one of them right now lives in Augusta, Georgia. And I told him, you know, his son's got to play football in an SEC, preferably Tennessee. If he plays for Georgia, that's fine.
Yeah.
But preferably Tennessee.
What
But
about Louisiana?
no. But the thing is that we have got to say what we believe in. And that comes back to this question that you had. Constitutional conservatism. It is all about the relationship between the individual and the institution of government. In the United States of America, if you understand our founding documents, the individual is sovereign. The individual is supreme. But right now, we are having an interesting battle between which way we go. Is it the institution of government,
Right.
or is it the individual?
Mhm.
Statism, Marxism, socialism, progressivism, all of those things believe that the institution of government is supreme. And when you study and understand the Quran, the Surah, and the Hadith of Muhammad, it is that institution of government ordained through the Quran which is supreme over the individual. So we've got to make sure that people realize that we as constitutional conservatives, again, principle, not party, but constitutional conservatism, believes in the supremacy, the sovereignty, the liberties, and the rights of the individual. And you can see right now where that's playing out with the mess they're going through in Virginia.
I agree. Now, as chair, you'll have to deal with issues like there's a vote now coming up with the SREC on whether or not to give the log cabin Republicans a boot. And see, so what if someone wants to come in and have an opposing argument on one issue? Now, they just want to come in and trash Republicans. That's different.
Yeah.
But
They have to represent the Republican Party of Texas. They're at the Republican convention. They cannot come in and represent anything that undermines our platform, our principles there. And like I say, if you're gonna come there and start to think about, you know, same-sex marriage, then that's probably not the place for you to be. But I'm telling you, the opposite is, if all of a sudden the Republican Party of Texas says, you're not gonna have a booth,
right,
that's gonna play out in the newspapers.
yeah,
And it's gonna be something that, as you see, we told you, they're a bunch of bigots.
bunch of racist
and
bigots.
racist and all this type of stuff. So again, I always go at it, tell people what you're for, instead of telling people what you're against.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So, your opponent come convention time, you know, I assume that one of his last communications to delegates would be that it's too dangerous to change horses in the middle of the river. So how do you answer that?
It's very simple. I've been in combat, and I've known when commanders have lost their lives, the unit doesn't just stop. Someone steps up and they continue on. They Charlie Mike, as we say in the military, continue the mission. So, and we have changes of command for units in combat. When that commander's tenure is up, guess what? Someone else steps in. So, you know, Einstein defined insanity as continuing to do the exact same thing and thinking you're going to get different results. We're in a very bad situation in Texas where the left is targeting us because of the success that they had in 2018. They read, they see, they understand that the grassroots of Texas are not happy with what has been happening.
Yeah.
They're in Austin. They see an opportunity here. And so I would tell folks that an organization will always continue on. The state of Texas is bigger than one person. And that's what we need to come to understand. And that's what Dennis Bonner needs to come to understand.
Some people are gonna say, by the time the election rolls around, which is the convention, right, will be June, July, August, September, October, November, 6 months out from the election. And they're gonna say, why change horses so close to the election as far as the chair is concerned? And what would be your reply there?
My reply there would be that programs and systems that are working, they will stay. Things that aren't working, we're going to improve upon. And that's it. I have the goal of one thing, us winning in 2020 in November and keeping Texas red. And then from there, you know, getting ready for our next legislative session. But the most important thing is to start building a farm team of strong constitutional conservative candidates. Local level, state level, all the way up to the federal level. We got to define that. I never want the left to ever believe again that Texas is in play.
You have 5 legislative priorities, as you know, from the past convention, and none of them really saw the light of day in the legislature. What would you do different to make that happen?
Before we go into the legislative session, I'm sitting down with the lieutenant governor, the governor, and the speaker of the house. And I said, we're not leaving out of here until we have agreement on what we're going to have as our priorities going forward. Here are the priorities that the Republicans of Texas want.
Okay. A little further down on the 10th Amendment, and please explain your interpretation of the 10th Amendment and the principle of nullifications. Do states have that right? You replied that I think we see the issue of nullification happening now in Virginia, which you just mentioned. Please explain what's going on there.
Well, the thing is, when you talk about nullification, anytime a higher level of government tries to take away something that is a defined constitutional right, it should be nullified. So that if the federal government is pushing something down on the state that is unconstitutional, then the state has every right to say no. You look at case in point, Governor Abbott was given the opportunity to say yea or nay on accepting more refugees. He said nay. And now we have some judge out in the state of Maryland, some federal judge saying
Right.
you can't do that. Well, Governor Abbott says, I don't know if you've recently read, but you know, the President of the United States of America granted me, the executive of this state, the authority to be able to make this decision. You can't, you know, be the judicial activist from way up there. So that's how you nullify that decision from a federal judge, which goes against the constitutional authority under the system of federalism that governor has. But just the same as you see in Virginia, where Governor Northam is coming up with all these goofy ideas, and as you all may not know, Virginia's already said that they have canceled the 25 reciprocal concealed carry states that they had.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he just did that today.
Is that what you're referring to?
Well, no, what I'm referring to is the fact that Northam is saying that he is going to go out and, you know, confiscate a certain type of weapon from people that haven't done anything wrong.
Cool.
So in other words, he is going to try to use his power and his authority to take away that individual right which is also in their constitution, for people to be able to keep and bear arms. So guess what you see happening? You see 85 of 95 counties in the state of Virginia saying, we're sanctuary counties with the Second Amendment. You see sheriffs saying, we're not going to do this. So that nullification issue is very important because it keeps that next higher level of government. It keeps them within those constraints of the Constitution and our rule of law.
Right. Well, our county just did that, what, a couple months ago?
I think we got 8 or 9 counties in Texas.
Well, we kind of laughed it off and said, you know, it's constitutional, right? Well, it's higher than that.
Yeah, but you see the precedent now?
Yeah.
See, you're dealing with people that their ideological agenda becomes their religion. Their ideological agenda becomes their law. If the Constitution says something that is not in concert with their ideological agenda, they don't care. So that's the danger of where we are. And God help us if we lose the Texas State House and these guys get in charge of redistricting.
Trying to get around the table, I got one more question. At what point should right to life or personhood be granted to new human beings? At conception, birth, 5 days old, what action, if any, will you take to affect this law? You mentioned that you're not a human biologist.
Yeah.
My belief is that when there's a heartbeat, there's a living human. I believe that is proven to be around 18 days. So does that mean if a fetus is terminated for whatever reason before 18 days, is that okay?
I'm not saying it's okay, but you asked me, you know, in my interpretation. And, you know, in my interpretation, an easy way to be able to stand up and fight against this would be when that heartbeat starts, which is exactly why people are passing the heartbeat bills. Because you can't argue against when a heartbeat starts, that's a viable human being. And so, you know, again, like I said, when you go into it with the left, you got to put them on defense. So you got to be able to come and say, you know, this is a life, there's a heartbeat. You know, we're not going down that path now. So I think that from the ability to be able to go out and message this and stand against the other side, that's the best way for us to be able to go forward and do it.
You stole my thunder, but I'm gonna switch horses. Protecting borders from illegal immigration. One of the statements you made in there also includes policies that clearly articulate that there will be no sanctuaries or taxpayer-funded benefits to those here in America illegally. What can the state do to cancel benefits to illegal immigrants?
I think that that's one of the laws that the state should be able to pass, that at the state level, they will not be providing those benefits. I mean, California is providing benefits to illegal immigrants. California is providing driver's licenses to illegal immigrants. So those are the type of things that we need to say clearly the state of Texas we're not going to do. And coming back to the state's rights over federal rights, I think it's about time that the state of Texas starts to realize we can't sit back and wait for the federal government. We got a crisis situation. We're #1 in the nation for human and sex trafficking. Dallas and Houston are the #2 cities in the nation for human and sex trafficking. The city with the highest arrests for narcotics is in Texas. I think Roma, Texas. Lubbock, Texas is becoming one of the most dangerous cities, not just in Texas, but in the United States of America. El Chapo's drug cartel freely operates in Lubbock. They're dealing with 17 to 1,800 gang members. That is almost an infantry brigade, if I were to put it into military terms. So we have got to start looking at this border crisis thing and saying, you know, it's time for us to take some action.
So there's a plank in one of the 332 that opposes benefits to illegal immigrants. Please, when you roll things up, don't lose it.
Well, I'm not going to lose that.
Okay, Larry?
I mean, and see, understand, the border is part of your national security.
Right.
It's part of your local security. It's part of your health care. It's part of your education. It is a multifaceted hydra.
It's part of your personal security.
Well, that's what I mean by local, the local criminality issue. And we got to deal with this. You know, I was down in Del Rio, right on the Rio Grande. And I'm telling you, I would not want to be one of those people whose backyard is the Rio Grande. Every night when the sun goes down, you're living in fear. Because the drug cartels and those folks are coming over, and they're daring. They're telling you that you can't say anything, you can't do anything. So that's why we've got to do something, because this is affecting the lives of our citizens. 80% of Mexico is controlled by drug cartels. Mexico is a failed state. And I think that it's important here. You want to talk about legislative priority? We just say Mexico is a failed state. We got a failed state. We're sharing a border with a failed state. What are we going to do?
Well, we started at 342 and it's
That's okay, go ahead,
447.
go ahead.
Well, also you need to make sure Colonel West is
You good for
comfortable with.
Well, I got to be up
Yes,
in
please.
Montgomery, Texas at 5:30.
And we get traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
y'all done?
I'm done.
Everybody does? Very good.
5 minutes.
If you want to wrap up.
I think I've covered everything, and I'm a pretty transparent guy. I have never seen a greater threat to the United States of America than what we see now from the progressive socialist left. And that threat is focused right here in the state of Texas. And if we don't get a sense of urgency about what is happening here in Texas, we're going to lose this nation. You know, you asked the question about, you know, some people may come up and say, you know, why we want to change horse in the middle of the street. Let me tell you about 1942, the Battle of Kasserine Pass. It was the first American encounter with the German army, Rommel's Africa Corps. One of the worst defeats that the army has ever had. Now, should we have said we'll leave that commander in place? And maybe we can retrain him, he can figure it out, and maybe he'll get better the next time? That's not what Eisenhower did. Eisenhower changed right then. And the general that he put in charge was a guy by the name of George Patton. And the rest is history. He never lost a battle. He was the most feared general of the Germans in World War II. And they firmly believed that where Patton was, that's where the invasion of Europe was going to be. That's why they used Patton as a decoy. Yeah, to Calais, and they went to Normandy. The left knows who I am. And there's a reason why George Soros put $5 million in against me in 2012. Nancy Pelosi put $3 million in against me in 2012. I was the #1 target for the Democrat Party in the 2012 election after the presidential race. Because I would take the fight to you. And that's exactly what I'll do here in Texas. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
No problem. All right, good luck.